Yeah. So Robert just said to me, if you heard me giggle, Robert just said to me, have fun making it up. Thank you. So what is life if not something we've made up? Is it possible that that's what our life is we're making it up? So my question to all of us, instead of the Dr. Phil question is, so why not make it up joyful?
Yes, that works.
That works? Thank you. So last night, in the midst of many things that we were focused on, busy with, and so on, I stopped for a while and turned on Hour of Power with Bobby Schuller. He used to love his grandpa, Robert Schuller, and Bobby Schuller is now the one who's doing the talking or the ministry. Definitely a ministry that is meant to create more positive energy in the world. And while it shifted and changed, it still has the basic heartfelt energy of the Schuller family. Now, what happened was, and I told Robert I didn't plan it, is the topic was joy. Surprise! And that's my topic today, is joy, enlighten with joy. And he said, he looked at the dictionary, sounds like somebody else I know, to define the word joy, and it's a pervasive sense of well-being. A pervasive sense of well-being. Sounds good, huh? So it doesn't necessarily mean you have a big grin on, but it might, or that you're laughing all the time, but it might. But it's a sense inside that all is well. Life is good. I'm just fine. No worries. Oh, that reminds me of the song, Don't Worry, Be Happy. As I was sitting there listening to your meditation, what came up was, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. You can't sing that song without feeling joy. You know, I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, that song, right? Joy to the world. What happens, I mean, I see some of you sitting there wondering about this. What is it about this joy thing? What happens when we have a world that doesn't feel very joyful? What happens to you when your family doesn't seem to be very happy with you? What happens when you lose your job, or you have an ache or a pain, or you don't have the money that you wish you would have to buy presents? What happens to your joy? So Robert mentioned something about worldly or human pleasure. Like right now I'm feeling cold, so my human pleasure isn't very joyful, right? My physical body. And no, you don't need to warm it up if some of you are thinking that. Because my body is not who I am. Who I am is spirit. Now, my definition for that word spirit is joy. My definition for spirit is joy. And Holy Spirit is the joy of wholeness or well-being. So when you listen inside to Holy Spirit, you're listening inside for the joy of well-being, for the sense of well-being in you. So I have my own little tricks about all of that happy stuff. I use happy joy. For me, it's all the same. But you could say that one is more worldly and one is more spiritual. But for me, it's the same inside. I use that experience, that sense of well-being, as my guidepost along the bumps along the highway or the freeway. And when I get out there bumping on not feeling very well being, not very joyful, you know what I say to myself? Uh-oh, I got off path. I got off path. Now when those words came together, Enlighten with Joy, what I realized is today, we drove up Highway 29 and someone didn't have their lights on. It's dark when we drive down from our home. And so as we come to the traffic light, you know, I rolled down my window so that I could stop next to this woman who didn't have her lights on. And she turns on her lights. Enlightenment is turning on your lights. And then you have a sense of well-being because you feel safe. Because you can see and hear and feel and know you are awake and aware. What if the lack of joy is because we are in darkness? Because we don't have our lights on? What if what we need to do is see that we've gone off path and we need to turn on our lights and get right back on? Is it really that simple, Betty Lue? I think it's that simple. I have a hunch, I might even challenge you, try it for 30 days. Try just that for 30 days. And watch your endarkening thoughts or habits disappear. Because you're so focused on the light and enlightening your mind and your life and lighting yourself up wherever you go, that what you begin to see is that you're filled with joy when your lights are on. That you're filled with joy, natural joy, peaceful joy, loving joy, gentle joy, kind joy, giving joy. Simply because you're paying attention. Now I see that many of you here give extraordinarily. You give here, you give to your kids, you give to your community, you give to the world at large. But you may not even notice that you're giving. Because you're focused on worldly giving. Giving with money. Giving by doing something. But what if, as our affirmation today was, your life is the gift? Your life. And if you would enlighten yourself and begin to see yourself as fully alive, wow! You would begin to recognize how abundantly you live right now. And if you're like me, you would feel exquisitely joyful, super grateful, a sense of well-being and well-meaning for everything you think and do and say. Now I'm looking at those of you who give with something. Like we've got folks here who brought a ham, you know, to remind Robert that he can be a ham, and bought a turkey to remind Robert that sometimes he can be. And all the other good food out there. And what I'll tell you is, it's not the food, it is the joy with which you are giving, creating, placing it on the plate, celebrating it when you eat and partake, watching people enjoy it and increasing their joy and life energy. It is the joy with which you give, whatever it is you're giving, that makes the difference, that enlightens us all because your lights are on when you're joyful. So when I make a salad with my lights on. I'm paying attention. I'm not doing it in the dark. I'm not doing it begrudgingly. I'm not doing it with a sense of, oh darn, I gotta do a salad again. Because I know that what I'm really feeding my world is my light, my joy, my sense of well-being. Doesn't that make sense? So stop and look, just stop and look at your sense of well-being from every moment of every day. Sometimes I have people write down a list, and you might want to play this, a 24-hour clock of pretty much what you do, like your phone calls that you make, and your personal time in the bathroom, and the time that you sleep, and the time you're on the phone, and the time you're on the internet, and the time you go to work, and the time you're in traffic, and all that stuff. And actually, do a 24-hour clock and see what you have in that 24-hour period on average. And then go to the other side of the page and put your 24-hour ideal life. And put in there all the things you want in your ideal life. And then your job, should you be willing to accept it, is to literally take your current life and make it your ideal life. And I'm going to tell you a secret. It will only work if your ideal life is filled with joy. It will only work if your ideal life, every moment of it, provides you with a sense of well-being coming from within, not from what other people say or think or do. No comparative mind, no thoughts, no worries, no fears about it, but a sense that this is my thing to be and do at this moment in time. Sometimes I call it flow time. Going where my spirit, my heart wants me to go, doing what my spirit and my heart wants me to do, talking to people with the words that I'm called to say, being fully alive and being who I am. So a story. The story is about a time, and yes, I have shared it somewhere, probably several times, maybe here. So years ago, my partner and I used to take groups of people backpacking in the high Sierras. And one time we had a trip in the spring. We thought it was early enough. I think it was probably June. But the snow was still very high in the high Sierras and covered the markers on the trees. How many of you actually gone hiking up there, like in the highest part of Yosemite and so on? Anybody here? Yeah, good. So we stopped for a while for whatever munchies we had with us. And everybody was cold and wet because of the snow. And frankly scared because our guide, who was my partner, didn't actually know where we were. And didn't know where to go. I had probably been listening to Holy Spirit for some of you, to inner guidance, for, let's see, that would have been around 1981, so probably 4 or 5 years or so. And I totally trusted. But sitting there, I was afraid that I would make God look foolish because I would make a mistake and guide them incorrectly. That's foolish. And that's where I learned that I need to stop paying attention to what anybody thinks and lead my life listening to and honoring the voice within. And so, somewhat, whatever the word is, trepidatious, or a little scared, maybe even a lot scared. What I decided to do was I decided to be me. Betty Lue. Betty Lue is innocent. She's truly happy. And I decided to listen inside and let Spirit lead me and this group of probably 10, 12 people. But I had some requirements. And I still have requirements, I just realized right this second, on the same stuff. I needed to be alone. I needed to be separate from the energy of the group, which was cold and wet and scared. And so I just said to them, you guys hang back, you can watch and see where I go, follow after me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run, backpack and all, and I'm going to run. And I don't remember if I was singing, but a lot of times I sing when I do that. And I literally ran up and down over these big, huge mounds of snow, and everywhere that the snow was melted, the path was beneath my feet. Yes, that touches me. Because I know I can trust in God. I know that there is a power and presence that lives within every one of us if we can take our minds away and quiet them. And lighten up our path, that we will see the path that God has given us, always beneath us. And when you begin to know that there is an inner light and an inner guide and an inner good and an inner joy that provides for us all the time, you stop paying attention to what other people think and you start listening within the voice of love and joy in you. So what is Enlighten With Joy? What is that? I started out by saying the world sometimes seems dark and there are people who have troubles and fears and illness. And I can commiserate, good word, or what I can do is I can lift myself to the highest place I know, knowing and trusting that all is well in you, and you, and you, and you, and all. And if I shine my light bright enough, I can enlighten your way too. Someone shared briefly with me recently about watching the passing of a dear friend who had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And it is an interesting journey because in my personal experience with those with that particular disease, which usually is quite slow and often has little or no ability to do anything the last weeks, if not months, including eat, including talk. The grace with which she let go, the grace, the joy, the peace with which she let go. I would invite you to take your life, you could say, into your own hands, and be willing to give your life to grace, to peace, to joy. And follow the path that continues to guide you right back in a way that you feel joyful, enlightened, uplifted, inspired. And watch everything else fall away and become as nothing. Watch that your inner light literally brightens your path and shows you your way. So Dr. Phil just came up again. Thank you, Robert, for bringing up Dr. Phil. So you could ask yourself, is this bringing me joy? Is this inspiring me? Does this gift I'm giving, or this way of being, or this person I'm sharing with, give me an opportunity to be my most high and joyful self? So what happens when you're, just look at it. What happens when you're not feeling joyful, you guys? Take a look. See, I can just have us go look at that not joyful state when we start feeling not joyful. Do you notice that? So I want you to be aware, that old thing about, don't think of an elephant. So I mentioned the word lacking joy. And all of us, just in thinking the thought and thinking those words, I don't have joy right now, I'm not happy right now, all of us literally go to that place. Because thoughts create. Your thought is creating your experience right now. So if you hear me and you say, no, I don't understand that, no, I can't be that, that's where you're going to go, is where your thoughts take you. So where do your thoughts take you when you have the experience of what brings you joy, meaning? Sense of well-being, pervasive sense of well-being. Where do your thoughts go? So I'm going to describe something about the tree, the unexpected gift from Pat McCauley. By the way, if you want some, she'll bring some next week. I just want you to know whether it's the lights on the candle or the lights on the houses, or perhaps the songs that you sing or remember, or perhaps the fellowship from coming together and eating a meal, or perhaps the hug and the smile that you give and receive from someone. You can be the one who brings the light to the world. You can be the one who holds the hand with an inner, natural sense of well-being. You can be the one who answers the phone and the problem in the other person with an inner sense of all is well. You can be the one who brings with your caring and sharing, it's all okay. Sometimes I think we forget in the hustle and bustle the gifts things. The making food, perhaps curmudgeonly, that's another word. All right, so I have to tell it myself. Oh, tricky. Okay, so I made my famous carrot cake. And guess what? I was making several things at the same time, and Robert was making cookies at the same time, and other things were going on the computer at the same time. And my little inner voice said, "You forgot the sugar." So you see a little piece is cut off the end of that carrot cake because I tasted it and gave some to Robert, and yes, I forgot the sugar. And then I added my cream cheese stuff over the top, and frankly, it's like having carrot bread with a beautiful, warm, it's like having a cinnamon roll, except it's a carrot roll, okay? So I'm telling myself, right? I'm laughing because I was guided to say that, you guys. I was guided to tell you, and I never would have told you otherwise. So, you would have found out yourself. So, what is that about joy? Well, instead of saying, "Oh my gosh, that was a horrible thing to do, and now I've got to throw it away, I've got to cook another one," all this stuff. What Robert said, Mr. Joy said, "It's not bad, Betty Lue." And then I thought to myself, how wonderful to be willing to accept what is without worry and judgment, and just be happy that I have the opportunity, this is the kicker for me, to prepare something for you from a place of inner joy. It gives me a sense of well-being, to feel safe in your presence, a sense of well-being. It gives me a sense of joy to be with people who love me and know that I love you. It gives me a sense of well-being that we get to worship here together. Sing our songs, whether they're silly and light, or they're serious, or they're old-fashioned. We get to sing together. We get to hug each other. We get to hold hands. It gives me a sense of natural, sweet, God-given joy to be a child in this family. And my prayer is that we all feel this is where we belong.
Yes.